why does Harappan script continues to fascinate so many people and scholars? What is so special about it?
Archaeologists said that the seals which come from Harappa must also be containing some form of script, but it was very different from the Sumerian script. It was not cuneiform. So if it is a script, it represents a language. But if it is a set of emojis, it's communicating things, but it is not necessarily presenting a language. And each of these two schools of thought have very strong. Scholars have done some computer tests and realized that they are not placed randomly. There is a grammar that is followed. A particular set of symbols is usually at the beginning, in the middle, and the end, which means they are meaningful. They're not just decorations. There is nothing about written on some public platform, except I think there is one at Dholavira. They have found what is called a signboard with some symbols on it. So that's an interesting feature that you find.
Scripts and languages continue to intrigue scholars, especially if they are ancient, and more specifically when we talk about Harappan script. So, what's the curious case of Harappan script? Let's find out in today's episode of Art and Culture with Devdutt Patnaik. Hello everyone, I am Manas and you are watching Art and Culture with Devdutt Patnaik. Now today's episode is important because we are going to talk about one of the most, mysterious part of art, culture and ancient history of India, that is Harappan script. Now we know that there have been a lot of efforts in the past by archaeologists, independent researchers, Government of India, Ministry of Culture, Archaeological Survey of India, to decipher the Harappan script. But it still remains mysterious, or there's a mystery around it. Now, the question is that why Harappan script continues to fascinate scholars so much. Let's take up this question, the first question with Devdutt Patnaik. But before going to the question, let me just remind you that in the first season of Art and Culture with Devdutt Patnaik, some of the initial episodes which we did with Devdutt, we've discussed, the basic difference between script and language and, various basic information around it. So my advice to you is to just go back, revisit, watch it again, and then come back to this episode. So let's take up this first question with Devdutt now. Devdutt, why does Harappan script continues to fascinate so many people and scholars? What is so special about it?
Many people are interested about the Harappan script. The Harappan civilization was discovered in the Indus Valley about 100 years ago. And in the discovery was 100 years ago, and it was realized that the civilization is over 4,500 years old, which means the civilization existed when the Egyptians were building the pyramids. Now there they found these clay seals, tiny, made of soft stone, carved with images of animals, and then there were a whole bunch of symbols on top of it. Now, the Harappans were trading with Sumeria, and in Sumeria we have thousands and thousands of clay tablets with these markings, which are called the cuneiform script. And it is clear that these were created by accountants to maintain the accounts in the temples and palaces of Mesopotamia. So archaeologists said that, the seals which come from Harappa must also be containing some form of script. But it was very different from the Sumerian script. It was not cuneiform. So the question is, what is the script? And 100 years have passed and we have not been able to decipher it. And the main reason for this is that we do not have something like a Rosetta Stone, a bilingual stone which has the Harappan script and some other script which helps us understand what it is. And scholars are divided about what the script is all about. Broadly, there are two schools of thought. One, is it a script or is it a set of emojis? So that's the big difference. Like, is it a script or is it a set of emojis? Now, if it is a script, is it logographic? That is it pictures like the Chinese script? Or is it based on syllables or alphabet, something like the way we write Devanagari? And lots of things are in. Does it, so if it is a script, it represents a language. But if it is a set of emojis, it's communicating things, but it is not necessarily presenting a language. And each of these two schools of thought have very strong, schools of thought, debates going on between them, which is quite exciting.
Thank you, Devdutt. Now, I'm sure a very logical question in everybody's mind will be that what is the debate and what are the discussion around Harappan script in India? And well, that is obviously a very logical question. But before going to this question, let us first understand what are some of the important characteristics of Harappan script that we all must know. So, Devdutt, if you can throw some light on this particular question.
Certain peculiar characteristics about the Harappan script that they found about 400 to 600 unique scripts. So that makes it feel that can't be a language, because so many symbols are there, 4 5. So then some scholars did some computer analysis, and there are some core scripts, about 25 core, which can be sort of modified to create 400 500 symbols. So that's a good point. So you have core symbols, and then you have got these additional symbols which are there. Then the next question was that, when you see these sales, you only have 4 or 5 symbols at a time, mostly. Very few. There's 1 or 2 places where there are slightly long ones, but generally you have only 4, 5, 6 symbols. That is very difficult to know whether it is so it's definitely not a poetry or a story or somebody writing some document like an Ashokan inscription. So what is it exactly? So that's another peculiar characteristic that you see in it. Scholars have done some computer tests and realized that they are not placed randomly. There is a grammar that is followed. A particular set of symbols is usually at the beginning, in the middle, and the end, which means they are meaningful. They're not just decorations. So that is another thing that we know. Another thing that we know is that the people wrote it in the seals from right to left, but then when you put it on the ceiling, it is from left to right. You read it left to right, but the seal is from right to left. How do we know this? Because when they saw the carvings, it was done towards the left side. There was a lot of crowding, and they said, "Oh, why is it crowding?" Because the carver is starting from the right side and moving towards the left side. But when you put a seal, even it's a seal, right? So you put it on a clay, and then the sealing will be, you'll read it in the opposite direction, like a stamp. So that's another peculiar feature of it. Some of the places where it is found is, of course, mostly found in clay seals, but it's also found on some metallic sheets. It is found on some pottery. Was it available put on cloth, fabric, or some leaves? It is quite possible, but since they are organic material, we don't have it. We have no proof of it. It is not found on any walls. It is not found on any bricks. So it doesn't seem to be part of the monumental. There is nothing about written on some public platform, except I think there is one at Dholavira. They have found what is called a signboard with some symbols on it. So that's an interesting feature that you find. The question is, how, in what context has been found? Now that's a very important question. Where is this script found? And it's always found related to mercantilism. It is not found inside houses. It is found near gates or in certain warehouses where goods are stored. So it is clearly related to mercantilism. So it creates this thing that it is not a general language, it's a merchant language, which I think is very interesting and helps us understand the Harappan script.
Thank you, Devdutt, for that lucid explanation. And I'm sure students must be noting them down because, this is a very important topic. Anything, connected to Harappan civilization or Indus Valley civilization is very important for your exams and knowledge in general. Now, we've divided this particular episode in 2 parts. So the second part, we will be discussing about debate and the other aspects around Harappan script. So stay tuned. Meanwhile, I would also request you all to revisit our other episodes of the past, just revise it, and at the same time, do not forget to follow our initiatives of the UPSC Essentials of the Indian Express, which includes a magazine and various articles which you will find on indianexpress.com under the UPSC section. So that's all from me today. We'll come next week again, and we are going to continue from where we left today. That is, we're going to talk about debates, discussions around Harappan script. So as I say always, think smart, work hard, conquer your goal. Bye-bye.